Okay, welcome to the Hoops and the P.N.W. I'm head coach Randy Edens, and I'm the head girls basketball coach at Lake Stevens High School. Also the vice president of the Washington State Girls Basketball Coaches Association. And it's been a little while. We did these podcasts back in 2020 when we were all looking for things to do. And I was going a little stir crazy myself, just not being able to be with kids and coaching them up. And of course, that was right before summer basketball starts, which is one of my favorite times of the year, and so on and so forth. And so we needed some outlets, and I was doing a lot of walking, and I needed some things to listen to beyond just my traditional things I like to listen to in a podcast format, and felt like we could do a little service for coaches in our area and those that just have a love and a passion for the game. And so, but it's been a little while, and so we're going to try to bring these back. And I wanted to kind of kick off coming back with a look at our recent state champions this past season in girls basketball. And we're kicking our things or our podcast off with head coach Shane Wichers from Nooksack Valley, who I've admired for quite a long time. And I don't think we've crossed paths, certainly at different events, and played each other a few times, but just haven't had a chance to really kind of dig into your background. So I'm really pumped about today and asking a few things and hopefully sharing a little bit of that magic that this past season was. I'm sure you're ready to share a little bit of that. I certainly would love to hear it. But thanks for coming on and being a part of the show today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
All right. So speaking of backgrounds, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit of Nooksack Valley background. You can, coaching wise, I want to know that too. And then were you a player? I mean, where do your roots kind of come from in terms of this basketball sort of thing? So go ahead.
Yeah, I pretty much raised in Bellingham, Washington, went to Sion, so I'm a Mariner graduate.
Okay. Yeah.
And started to play in high school. Wasn't that good. Six-man, probably my senior year. With little confidence, played with a lot of fear. And got done with high school basketball and never wanted to coach it, play it, ref it, or really watch it, and just hated it. From just experience wasn't very good.
Okay.
And a buddy of mine asked me if I wanted to coach AAU, and I'm like, no, don't want to do it. And he kind of twisted my arm. And at 18, I started coaching, co-coaching a team with him, and we did some boys and girls club, did some AAU. And then I got connected with some people at NBC camps and did that for a few summers full time, and decided to go into teaching as a physical education teacher, and went to Western. And my dad and I actually started our own basketball program at Western on Sundays, a fundamental program, and girls would come, and we had some of the women's players come and help us, and we just did work. And so I got to kind of tinker, try, learn how to coach.
Sure.
Started my student teaching. Actually, I student taught at Nooksack Valley and coached C-team boys, and it was a great experience. And that spring, after student teaching, I was subbing, and the girls' job came open, and I kind of applied, and didn't have really any high school, outside of AAU coaching experience. Right. And they took a chance on me, and that was in 1996, 97, and I've been there ever since.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's been great.
So what an interesting dynamic. So obviously I don't want to necessarily get into your negative experience, because that's obviously nothing that you have to share, but to get to that point where you just didn't have initially that interest to want to do anything, whereas I was awful at myself. I only made the team, my sophomore year, because they had 4 teams, and they always do say, if you can't play it, you coach it. But you said you were a 6th man, so you were playing to some degree. I mean, all the way up through your senior year, so you have some of that experience in there. But really interesting just to not, it seems like, really want to have any attachment to it. I love the fundamental side of things, but you got started young, though. I mean, that's not even, you had mentioned 18.
Yeah. And my senior year, our coach kind of was dismissed right before postseason, and our JV coach came up, and we had
Uh,
like, I don't know, 50, 60 play. I mean, it was insane. And I knew
Jeez.
them all.
Okay.
And actually, a couple times in timeouts in postseason, my JV coach looked at me and goes, well, what should we run? So I would
Yeah,
tell him, like, we should run
sure.
this out of bounds player. So I guess that was really probably my first, it's not really coaching, but,
Yeah, sure.
seeing the game. And
Well, that's heat of the moment stuff. That's a little different dynamic than just being a player. You know, all of a sudden, as you know, people are looking at you to, get you that next play or possession or whatever it may be. Now, I guess quick side, are you using any of those plays right now with Nooksack Valley?
uh, actually, we put in two this last year for postseason, just for a little twist. But for the most part, no, not at all.
Okay. But there's some things in there though, right? I
Yeah,
mean, there's a little influence in there. I like it.
right.
Okay, so Nooksack Valley, long time.
Yep.
You're a rare breed,
I,
you
I,
know.
I guess I am. Yeah.
I mean, in terms
27
of
years.
staying in one location, that's certainly a rarity, but also staying in the girls' game, for that long. So, what's kept you hooked? Why have you wanted to stay maybe in the girls' game? Why have you wanted to stay in Nooksack Valley? Or could they be intertwined?
Yeah, I think, coming from a bigger school, going to a bigger school in high school, I
Yep,
love the small school feel.
sure.
So I think that's been powerful, having my kids go through it, and just everyone kind of knows everybody. That's obviously changing more and more as time goes on, but I think that was big. And then I think coaching girls, I just always felt like, guys knew everything and girls were way more coachable and teachable. And once they understood what you wanted, they would do everything in their power to try to
Right.
do it, and
Yeah.
we were always open to feedback, where guys would, like, they kind of look at you and go, okay, whatever. And then they just do it their own way.
Yeah. No, that's something I've said before a couple times to people because I've coached boys. Actually was up in Burlington, Edison with Rick Skeen for a couple years
Mhm.
before I got the girls' job at Lake Stevens, and we'll get to Northwest Conference, Whatcom County hoops, Skagit County hoops in just a sec. But people have asked, what have you had a preference? Did you like boys or girls better? And for the same reasons you'd mentioned, girls just they want to be coached and are accepted to feedback and are willing to work hard and do the things that you ask. And whereas boys, okay, yeah, and then athletically they'll just go do things and go play and
Yeah.
you know, and that's something that's really kind of got me hooked. I know for sure. Um, and then I've really enjoyed. And I don't know if this is the case, but I also feel like the relationships are seem to be more meaningful, I guess, in the girls' game than the guys. I don't know if you've caught that same experience, maybe as a teacher or as a coach. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, there's a level, because I feel like, in the girls' game, they need each other to be successful. Where in the
Yeah,
guys' game, if you're just super athletic, you're just going to go do whatever you do, and you don't necessarily need. You don't feel like you need those other people, but in reality,
sure,
you do. But I feel like the girls once they understand, that team cohesion thing. I think they're more likely to buy into it sometimes
sure.
than guys.
No, that makes sense. Um, I'm assuming you're the old guard in the league, right?
Yeah, I am. Doesn't feel like it, but I am.
What's the disparity? Who's next?
I think Brett McLeod at Burlington,
What? That's
and
true?
then, well, I think, I mean, and then
Brett
maybe
and I are
Brady.
really close buddies. We go back to coaching freshman girls basketball. He was at Oak,
Yeah,
and I was at MP, Marysville Pilchuck High School. And we had some classic, probably 12-10 matchups. Final score sort of scenarios, and but great guy. But man, yeah, he's what is he at? You're 6'7" there?
no, I think he's more than that. I thought he was at like
Longer?
12,
Okay.
and then I think
12.
Brady Bomber, I think's next, like
Yeah,
8, 6, 7. I don't know, something like that.
sure. Okay. Well, what makes Nooksack Valley unique? You've obviously been there a long time. What makes it such an enjoyable place for you to coach and teach and that kind of thing?
I think tight knit community, great support. You know, it's like every place. I mean, there's obviously expectations and stuff like that, but we've had great kids come through, really bought in. I think, you know, one of the things I do like too is I have my fingers all the way into youth, all the way down. So, you know,
Yeah.
we're small enough still that, you know, I can go in to little league and work with third graders or, you know, whatever,
Sure.
or sixth graders. And so, and then to know the kids as they come through, I think that's been pretty cool. And like, I just think the smallness is, you know, everyone's
Yeah.
kind of pulling the same way. And so I think that's kind of fun.
Now, do you have a pretty rich family lineage in terms of girls and families that go through? I mean, I know Linden Christian certainly does. Do you have that same experience at Nooksack Valley as well, or no?
I don't, you know, I mean, Linden and LC is a little bit of a whole different degree of
For sure.
pedigree. No, yeah, I think I mean, we have kids coming through and, you know, siblings play and, you know, I'm getting to the point where you know, I've got kids of former players coming through. And so that's pretty
Yeah.
cool to see.
Yeah. No, for
I mean,
sure.
it's hard. I think it's hard though too today because there's kids, as you well know, there's so many different things now that kids have choices. There's so many choices kids can do. Where
Right.
10, 15, 20 years ago, there was, you know, in the winter, you played basketball.
Right.
There wasn't a lot else to do.
Right. No, it's so true. Well, and trying to find the balance, right? I mean, kids are going so above and beyond, probably what's even healthy for themselves to just engage, and try to appease. I think a lot of, and I know we were talking off air about this, trying to get those multi-sport kids that, really help your program. And at the same time, you don't want to lose them because they're doing too much. It's such a
Yeah.
delicate balance. But I would imagine that's pretty significant for a 1A school you have to have that though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
without it, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah. We have a lot of
Respectfully.
kids that typically it's volleyball and basketball here, but there's some
Yep.
soccer players, you know, and we have a lot of girls that play fast pitch in the spring. So, you know, summer we kind of pick weekends. It's a basketball weekend or it's a volleyball weekend. And then like, or summer practices, we go back to back with volleyball, basketball. So we go like an hour and a half basketball, then volleyball goes right after us for an hour and a half.
Love it.
And
Love it.
we'll do another day where volleyball goes, like we might go in the morning and then we'll go another day in the week where we go in the evening and volleyball goes first and we go second. So kids at
Sure.
work, mornings or nights or whatever, we hopefully catch them a little
Okay.
bit.
Cool. Love it. All right. So let's get into little Nooksack Valley this past season. So that's kind of the focus of how we're opening things with our schools, and we definitely want to make sure we kind of capture the season and what went right. Now I know you guys have had quite a long tenured run of success. There's no doubt about it. So I want to start there first because I need to know some of those details myself. I know our westcoathletics.com has changed. So to be able to kind of get to your guys' league is a little tougher than it used to be, trying to navigate statistics and history and all that kind of good thing. So let's start there first. Give us like a Nooksack Valley girls basketball like history synopsis as best you can. Certainly during your time frame. And then if that goes beyond yourself and success, let's hear that too. So give us some details there.
Well, I think, you know, obviously starting in 1996, 97, I inherited a program. We weren't very strong and I didn't really know what I was doing, quite frankly. I mean, you don't know,
Sure.
you don't know.
Right.
And so, you know, it was just, and I think one of the good things that is, it's a good thing. And sometimes it's a bad thing is I was a first time head coach and I was never a JV coach or a C team coach. So I had no
Yeah.
system that I was like going to implement. My only system was what I knew in high school.
Sure.
And so I was really willing to try anything, to learn anything. And then if it didn't work, I just chucked it and tried something else. So, you know,
Sure.
just I was seeking out information from whoever. And I thought, well, maybe I could use this, maybe I can't. And so I
Yeah.
just was like a sponge, really.
Sure.
And um, so it felt good to come in. And, you know, the first year we were 6-14. And then, in 2001 we were 26-1, had a great run of kids come through and got to state a bunch of times. And so, you know, I would just say, you know, we don't make it obviously to state every year, but, you know, we are, you know, fundamental. We work hard and we always
Yeah.
compete. You know, I'd say we've made the state a good share of the time, but, you know, with varying degrees of success, you know, and obviously
Sure.
this last year that culminated in our first state championship for girls basketball at Nooksack in school history. So that was, I don't know, really cool to be a part of.
Love it. Love it. How many state trophies in that trophy case, you know?
Oh, probably 12 or 16 in the program's history.
Love it. So, you know, and as we know in this area, you know, you guys make it out of your district tournament, you know you're gonna place well at a state tournament. I mean, that's kind of the league that you play in up there. And we'll talk about that in a second. District that you play in, you know that's inevitable. It's getting there that's been the challenge. Yep. Based on your opponents on a consistent basis. That said, I'm sure that was a little bit of a mental barrier for your young ladies, maybe early on in your career, maybe at different points in your career there. Can you speak to that a little bit? I mean, I know we talked about Linden Christian. Linden is kind of being the, you know, giants of girls basketball in Whatcom County, for that matter, probably Skagit and Whatcom. How tough was that as a program maybe to get over to know or to tell your young ladies, hey, we can compete with them?
Oh, I would say it's been really hard. You know, for the longest time, I think, you know, when you play LC with their such rich tradition and how much success they've had, it would be like you're down 15 before the tip off. Just the mental, like, you know, just kids are afraid. Like, we make a mistake, they're going to get it, and they're going to be up 20 before we blink. And so, getting them to believe that they can compete, you know, trust the system, trust each other. But I would say probably, you know, until the last 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 years, it's been that way. I mean, and their level of success has been off the charts. You know, LC and Linden's been right behind them. So it's been a real mental barrier. It's been hard.
No, I think that's been something that's been really special to kind of see teams that are able to do that, to finally kind of break through and feel like, hey, now we know that we can. And so does that almost raise your program maybe another level in terms of that confidence and that moving forward, hey, we have had a group that's done it before. We do have the capability of, you know, having the players and the coaching staff and the community that knows we can get that done.
Yeah, I totally think, you know, obviously success breeds success. So the more you do that, and if you can get wins, or even if it's close, it just gives your kids more confidence for the next time. Like, yeah, we're right there. We can do this, you know, and so I think that's, you know, a huge mental barrier that we've, you know, been able to jump over the last few years.
Sure. Love it. If you were looking back at this season, is there a particular win that told you, boy, we really have a shot at this thing at the end of the year?
Well,
or was there a point in the season, maybe it isn't a win, but was there a point in the season that you felt like, man, I think this might be the group. I think we've got a shot at getting this done?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, last year we lost in the finals in overtime to LC.
Yeah.
And so being the first time you're there, you don't know what, like, okay, I kind of seen it. I think I know what to expect, but then when you're actually down the court and, you know, the spotlights are on, it's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
You know, and then when we played LC after we lost a game, you know, it was, you know, the girls were a mess, rightfully so. They were disappointed and first time, and you never know if you're going to make it back. And so, you know, I felt like coming out of summer, you know, I just felt like, oh, we got some good pieces and we might be better than we were last year by the end. But I think when we played LC our first time in January, and we ended up beating by like 16. Played really well. I didn't, at that point I was like, well, as you well aware, to win a state championship, you know, a lot of things have to fall into place: health, you know, foul trouble, all that stuff. And so so when we were able to get them pretty handedly, and that we played them at our place, I'm like, okay, we're probably ahead of schedule.
Sure.
As far as where I thought we'd be at that point. It was a great test, you know, and everyone was building up to like, it was like World War III, you know, Nooksack.
Yes.
Oh, and Brady and I both were like, it's the same schools, but they're different teams. It's not the same team. So, you know, it was the first time we knew we were potentially going to play at least one more time, maybe 2 more times. And so we both knew, like, okay, here we go. And so it was
Yeah.
I think that was a great first test, and so.
I don't want to get too, so just to kind of jump in here. So there's like a 40-minute Zoom limit on this. This is my Marysville account. So I don't want to get too much into this and cut this off, but I will just send you another invite and link just so you know.
Okay.
When you think about the league that you play in, I certainly have a ton of respect for girls basketball because of the success that you guys have had up there. Boy, it's special. I mean, we're talking about you guys produce teams that can really play with anybody at any level in the state of Washington, regardless of the classification.
Mhm.
Why do you think that is? What's kind of taking or has taken girls basketball to that successful of a level that I can't think of any coach in the state of Washington, and for that matter in the country, that wouldn't want to coach teams that play like your guys do, that up there in that part of the state.
Well, I mean, I probably would have to say Kurt DeHaan, who was legendary at LC. I mean, he had those guys at such a high level, and to be able to just compete, like not get just destroyed every time, that forced you to get better.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I mean, I remember our first couple of games, like we could barely get the ball over half court.
Yeah.
So like, what are you going to do? Right. So you got to
Sure.
get better. Then I think, especially for the 1A schools, with playing 3A and 2A schools, I just feel like when we get to postseason, it's really easy to tell the girls, like, you've seen everything you're going to see this year. I mean, you've seen big, you've seen strong, you've seen fast, from the bigger schools. And so if you can compete against them, you're not going to see anything new,
right?
Any other 1A school. And so just that, and then, once we start playing in postseason, the girls start to realize, they're right. We've, the Ferndales, the Burlingtons, the, Anacortes, the Mount Vernons, whoever it is, the Lindens, the Seahomes, doesn't matter. Like, we're prepared. And so I think, that's huge. And, and as it's a big league, for the most part, you don't get very many nights off. You got to compete. You're going to get beat.
So that multi-classification certainly is a thing that's some coaches will look down on, because you feel like, oh boy, we're going to get our butts beat every night, and we're playing all those things that you felt like were an advantage or end up being an advantage when you get to the end of the season. Many would kind of look at, the context of the whole season, like, oh, I don't want to have to deal with that every night. Whereas you guys found your way, right? I mean, all of your programs have, and you realize that, you're going to be battle tested enough to get yourself to a space that is going to ultimately allow you to have success in the postseason. And maybe that it is that massive of an advantage compared to other teams that are just strictly in those classification leagues most of the year.
Right. And I think too, there's something to be said for, like, oh, you're playing a bigger school. And sometimes, as a smaller school, kids are a little worried, and you're just used to it. Like, we play 3A teams all the time. Sure. We play 2A teams all the time. So it's not like, okay, we've seen, huge teams, or we've seen super quick. I mean, it's like, after a while, it's not, there's not as much, I guess, shock and awe, where it's just like, go play our game.
Yeah. No, love it. Okay. So I'm going to take a quick pause. We're going to pause the show here. I'm going to transition to another Zoom clip so we can record it and add to our session. So stay tuned. Okay. So we had to pick up from to a second Zoom session. I got 40 minutes. This is my Marysville account. Just a little side. I coach cross country in the Marysville School District. They still have Zoom. I coach girls basketball in the Lake Stevens School District. We do not use Zoom anymore. We use Google Meet. And so I haven't figured out the record. I don't think they allow us to. So anyways, we're making it work. It's kind of the idea. So I have head coach Shane Wichers back with us, and we're getting into kind of the competitive nature of their league that they're in, and the success that not only, of course, Nooksack Valley, but Linden Christian, Linden, Meridian's had, a couple nice seasons here recently as well. Burlington, once again has been tough. I mean, we're talking really high level 1A, 2A state teams on a night to night basis. That's kind of from a competitive standpoint, and from a state coaches level standpoint, that's kind of a coach's dream in terms of the schedule. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. And then Mount Baker had the Soares girls.
Yes.
It's got draft number 4 in the WNBA draft.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, now didn't she go NAIA briefly, and then Iowa State here, right?
Yeah, she went to the Masters down in California for I think 3 or 4 years, and then transferred to Iowa State this last year.
Boy, talk about an exponential, off the charts run there. Nice.
Yeah, so I think for 1A, it's been Baker won it, then I think LC won it 3 or 4 times, then we
Yeah,
just so it's been it's been in the Northwest Conference for quite a few years.
love it, love it, love it, love it. Great stuff. I was speaking, to my coaching experience of Burlington, and one of the things that I really enjoyed and honestly miss, because it used to be this way back when I was in high school in the mid 90s, and you being from Seaholm, I know you guys got this as well, but you still feel it up there. But those Friday night environments, those high school environments,
Yep.
you guys still have that. I feel like we do a really good job for girls basketball at Lake Stevens, and we draw pretty well. And I know in our smaller gym before we got a nice new one, it was pretty full. But when I think about Burlington and coaching boys hoops, and for that matter, watching girls games, those environments are consistent up there.
Yep.
Why do you think that still is? How's it hanging on up there?
Oh well, if I think when two of the top teams in the league are playing, you're going to get a pretty full gym.
Sure.
You get hands in there. You get and it's loud, and
Yeah.
it's like it's awesome, and it's fun for the kids to be able to experience something like that, because it's not, like you said, it's not everywhere all the time, and
No,
so
it's not.
it's just super fun when they're open the doors early, and by the end of the JV game it's full, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a really cool thing for the kids to experience.
Now, are you regular quad nights? Do you have your own night? What does that look like now?
Yeah, right now it's our own night. We're typically with this last year, first year of a 2-year cycle.
Okay.
Boys are at home, we're away, or vice
Gotcha.
versa, and
Okay.
so
We're
it's
just starting to see more of that quad idea coming down. So I was wondering if that's gotten to you guys, or if you're doing it much, or
when you say quad, do you mean like double varsity? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah. So we'll have, yeah, the girls varsity will play like at 6, boys varsity play at 8, and our JVs might play at a middle school, or if we've got the room, that'll go 4 o'clock, 5:40
Yeah,
sort of scenario.
yeah.
So
We might do a few more of those next year. So we've done some of those in the past.
sure, I like the standalone. I feel like we can do it. I feel like it says a lot about our game. The girls' game. It can do it, and especially if you have programs that are successful, people want to come watch it on its own, merit. I will say though, the times that we've done quad nights, I feel like we've attracted more people and their interest in the girls' game.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we played at a high level now. I feel like our game has grown a lot, especially in our state where, we play an enjoyable brand of basketball. I feel like that people would want to come see. And, as we talked about earlier, girls want to be coached and want to do things that you tell them. And I think people connect with that. They like the athleticism of boys and so on and so forth, but girls athletically and the game and other stuff has come a long way. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think people like watching teams that play their quote unquote the right way. They work together. They're
Yes.
fighting for something that's bigger than themselves.
Right.
I think people latch onto that. I mean, that's the team. And everyone. I think everybody growing up on some level has played on a team like that. And so when they see that, they're attracted to it and want to be a part of it or follow it.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I feel like you can sometimes feel that from the crowd too, because you've been doing this long enough. I'm sure you probably had some teams where girls can kind of give off that dynamic that they're really supportive of each other, and maybe they're accomplishing more than their talent probably should allow, I guess, if you will.
Mhm.
Whereas maybe you've had more talented teams, but just those internal dynamics are such a struggle. The crowd feels that, like they can kind of sense that dynamic. It feels like with
Mhm.
girls teams. Have you felt that in your experience?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I think, we've had both. We've had, high quality, talent, and that's worked really well together. And I think we've had people that have, you know, been, they've reached maybe even higher than their potential
Yeah.
because of the team and what they're able to accomplish. And I think the crowd recognizes both. And I think they both like, I mean, it's just fun to watch the ball move around and find the open player.
Yeah.
Whether
No,
whoever it is. I mean, it's a great brand of basketball.
sure. If you could classify your system, and I'm going to use that loosely, air quotes here, what's your favorite way to play?
Play fast, if we can. Keep the defensively. I think the longer I coach, the less risky I want to be. Just keep the ball in front of us. I mean, we've done some different type of pressing stuff, but in my mind, I keep thinking, like, if we can't guard people in 20 feet and in, why would we want to try to do it 80 feet in? Like,
yeah.
And then offensively, I just think we do a lot of just give the kids a lot of ability to make their own decisions. So learning the game.
Yep.
To make decisions, because when crunch time comes, you're going to be scouted. People are going to know what you're going to do, and so it just boils down to, can you make plays? Can you make reads?
Yep.
So putting kids in situations to use their strengths to find opportunities to get shots and make plays.
What's your playbook look like early in your career compared to what it looks like now?
We were very set orientated, I think, early on. Lots of sets. Like we had to play for everything.
Sure.
And now we're very, very simple. We don't have very many sets. We have a few sets. It's pretty much just we do a lot. Just again, making reads, teach some basic reads, and kids play out of that. And then we have a secondary break rerun, and it's pretty. I got something flying around my face here. It's pretty simple, I guess. I mean, it's one of those things where it's not simple when you're learning it.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. But once you get it, it's not that complicated. So,
and it makes the game look simple when you play it, which is why people enjoy it, right? I mean,
right. And I think there's something to be said when if you have to think too much, your feet, what do they say, that your feet are slow. So it's getting kids to make quick decisions and read each other and play out of that stuff.
Right. Before we get back to your season, because I want to make sure I touched on something. If there was one thing you could tell your younger self as a coach, knowing what you know now, what would you have told them?
Well, so that's a really hard one.
Is there anything when you look back, you're like, I probably would have been better off not maybe doing this or doing this something differently, something like that?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think number one, culture. Having a culture trumps X's and O's. If your kids, especially with girls, if they don't like each
100%.
other, each other. So I think culture is huge. So I would have a plan to address that. And then I think what I've been learning in the last probably 5 years is, maybe less since COVID, is I think as coaches, and I've done this for so many years, like we take the skill and we remove it from the situation that it's in. Like, we do a shooting drill, we're just shooting. Right. Block shooting. Well, if you're doing block shooting, after about the third one, you're just autopilot. And the game is autopilot. You're always making decisions. And so, it's recognizing, deciding, and then acting. So we take out the recognizing and deciding, and we just do the skill so much as a coach. I think if I could go back, like, and tell my younger self, you need to keep that in as much as you can.
I like it.
There's no transfer. And then we get mad. Then we get mad at the kids, like, well, we just worked on this bunch. Why can't you do it? And so that's I think that's a huge one.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I've kind of got that way maybe with a little bit with like scouting reports. I mean, I probably watch way too much film, but then I feel like I'm not doing my job preparing myself to make sure they're prepared. Mm-hmm. And then, you talked about the transfer. That's where I've tried to maybe post-COVID here, keep it even more simple. Like, okay, I just need to give them what they need to know and not what I need to know or want to know for the sake of just me feeling good, Yep. And I think to some degree that's helped a little bit, because now kids are just playing instead of having all these things they got to worry about. I mean, I'd like to think that. And so, whereas early in my career, probably way too big of a scouting report and way too much film to watch. And those are all things like you had talked about real early on, as a new coach, you kind of just living and learning on the fly, right? And
Yep.
So that's something that's certainly that I think as a young coach, you've got to find that balance for sure. There's going to be really appropriate to find a ways to keep the game simple. I've tried to tell myself while we're getting older, they're still 15 to 18 years old.
Yep.
And so, our knowledge level has grown and grown and grown, and we've gone through all those experiences, but some are going through for the first times. And so I need that reality check on a consistent basis, it feels like.
Yeah, and most girls don't watch basketball.
Yeah.
So they don't know, they just don't see it like as much as we see it or we've seen it, and so
Sure.
keep it really simple and understandable for them, I think is really critical.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to your season here. We talked about earlier when you felt like, hey, we feel like we might have something here. Was there a point during the season, maybe even the playoffs, or where you felt like if we don't do something different, or we need to do something differently here to make sure we're in a good place to maximize our ceiling? Was there something like maybe you had a little hiccup in the season, or I noticed your one loss was to Tahoma. Was there any particular, was that kind of a game-changing moment for your season, or was it something else down the road?
Well, that game, we were supposed to play somebody else from California who their flight got canceled.
Right. That's right.
So,
Yeah.
so we had them all kind of scouted the best we could, and so then we're like,
Sure.
Oklahoma, and then the day before we played, one of our posts sprained her ankle.
Oh goodness.
So
Yeah.
we were coming into that game where we had to change our lineup a little bit. Um, so that was that game, but I think maybe probably most of the reflection came from after we lost the previous year.
Okay.
In the championship and overtime, like that was hard,
Yeah.
I didn't watch that game again until right like the 2 days before we started summer practice. I couldn't watch it.
Yeah. I know that feeling
So
well. Yeah.
yeah, so we just kind of went over like, okay, where are we at? What do we need to do different, or what do we got to change? And obviously when you get that close, it's not like you have to throw everything out and rebuild
Yeah.
everything. So
Right.
it was more just about I really wanted one of the things I really wanted them to be able to do was communicate live and adapt on the fly, because you're not going to hear my voice.
Yes.
And so
Especially in those environments and arenas, for sure.
yeah, so to be able to problem solve live, on a free throw or when the ball goes out of bounds, what we got to do, communicate things, and sometimes obviously in intense situations, there's people can take things wrong, and there's intensity in the tone and all that stuff. So I wanted all the girls to understand like we're problem solving, and so we spent quite a bit of time working through how we can be better communicators to solve problems. I felt like we could be more connected in that way. I thought that that could potentially help us down the stretch.
Boy, I love that, because to reflect on that a little bit, I think about playoff situations, even these last couple of years, my own daughter being in the program and wanting to see them be successful because this is her time through with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, there was a little bit of a different intensity that, maybe some of the girls weren't used to. My own kid knows because she's been around Lake Stevens girls basketball for 18 years, and
Right.
that's just dad, and that's how he is coaching. But at the same time, I wanted to see them be successful because one, I knew they could, but in that heat of the moment, the playoffs, but being able to communicate and understand, like you had mentioned, that tone, understanding that we're trying to communicate in the heat of the moment, and what does that look like? But being better communicators is such a huge thing, and not having maybe girls, or for that matter, even your coaches, taking maybe some of the things that are said in a personal fashion, understanding we're trying to do the best that we can in the environment, and it's coming from a place where collectively, for us to get to where we want to go, we've got to communicate better in that moment.
Yeah, and given the other thing we want to do is give the kids voice. Like, okay, so what are you seeing? Because you're on the court, you're seeing stuff that we're not seeing, and so getting them to talk, not just, me being the only one that knows anything. Like, what do you notice? What are you seeing?
Yeah.
How can we do this
Sure.
better? And so getting them, because if they own it more, they're more likely to do it better
Right.
and buy into it. And so, yeah, that was one of our kind of our big focuses, because we didn't really change, you know, X's and O's all that much. There's a few tweaks here and there, but it was
Sure.
pretty similar from the year before. I mean, at this point, you're doing it for so many years. I feel pretty good in what we do, X's and O's. Now it's just,
Right.
can I teach it better? Can I be more efficient and effective with our culture?
Yep.
Kind of those type of things.
Is culture a more of a summer thing for you in your program, or is it something that you work on just as much during the season?
It's all the time.
Okay.
Uh, and it's not like, I mean, we've done book studies or stuff like that, but it's just small little,
Sure.
tidbits. How do we communicate? How we help each other, how we just, lots of, just high fives, lots of contact with the,
Yeah.
girls. And then doing stuff that, practices are obviously really competitive, but we also do team things where we have score and time that we're trying to beat.
Yep.
So it's us now against the 19, or the 2022 team, or the 2018 team had this high score. Let's see if we can beat it, or whatever it is. So it's both those things. So yeah, you're competing against, everyone's competing against each other, but we're also competing against time and score of earlier years. And sometimes we get records, sometimes we don't, but
Okay. So
bringing it.
you keep track of maybe certain drills and scores from year to year, so that can be a benchmark for the next season's group.
Oh yeah. We have multiple drills where we do that. And so,
Love it.
and then on my practice plan, if we break the score, I'll just go in there and change it, and it
Love it.
automatically saves. And then I have it, it's always there. And I just put,
Yeah.
we got 80 on this drill on December 7th, 2018.
Yeah. So what a great way, easy way to just change kind of the mentality for the sake of the practice and the drill, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have your motives with the drill, but if they're just worried about the competition side of things, you're getting them to react, as you talked about earlier, in the moment, right? And here's what we're trying to do. And I like that
We,
quite a bit.
we've all done drills where, the kids are just getting after each other, and that's good.
Right.
But
Right.
it starts to get so intense that it's on the borderline of like dirty, or like, I'm not going to lose to you, or whatever
Yeah.
it is,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
then we'll finish that drill. We'll go right to a team shooting drill where everyone's together. We're working together to beat the score.
Yeah.
It's still intense, but it's bringing them back together to grow it.
Okay. Clock's ticking down. Now, 7-point game was the final? Was that the
Yep.
difference?
Yep.
When did you think we've got this?
Well, so the first time we played him, we got him by like 16. The second time we played him, we beat him by 12.
Yep.
So that was in the district final. So we're playing him again, and it's 4-4 after the first quarter. I'm like, it's gonna be right
Yeah.
to the end.
Yeah.
So it's back and forth. They're up at the end. I think they're up at the end of the third by 1. So it's fourth quarter. I don't know. There's 4 minutes left. I'm thinking, we cannot lose by 1 again. It can't.
Cannot happen. Yeah.
In the second quarter of that game, I completely lost my voice. Like, there's nothing coming out of my mouth. So we back and forth, and we decided to go to a zone for a couple possessions just to see if we can just change something up.
Yep.
And Grace Hines, they skip it to Grace Hines. She's got a wide open 3. Like, oh my gosh, I'm like, this is bad choice. And she misses. We're able to get the rebound. And then I don't remember the score. I mean, it's still like 1 or 2 points. And then our post gets the ball on the elbow, and she's kind of starting to panic. Like, I don't know what to do. And then she just all of a sudden just rips it and goes to the rim and scores. And once that happened, I think we were up 2 then. Then it kind of started. It was still close, anyway, but then we got another stop, and I felt like LC started to just get nervous. Like, they just started kind of panicking a little bit, like, oh, it's crunch time and we don't have much time left.
Right.
We got a turnover and then hit some foul shots down the stretch, and that's where it ended.
What'd you do with the trophy the first night?
The trophy was in the team room the first night.
Okay.
And we tucked it in. It was, we had a room, it was a regular room in the hotel where we had extra food and stuff. So we actually put it in bed and pulled the sheets up on the trophy and took a picture of it. So yeah, it was pretty
Did you
good.
take it home?
I left it in my classroom at school.
You're much more honorable than me. I've already told my wife if it ever happens, it's coming to bed with us for the night. So one night it's going to happen. So
it's pretty big. I mean,
it is very big. It is very
it's
big.
going to take a lot of space. Hopefully you have a king bed.
We do.
Okay.
When that final horn sounds, what are you feeling? I mean, from a coach's perspective, I don't want you necessarily to think, we would all think this. I know my first thought would be for the girls they got to do. I mean, how just insanely special. There's no doubt about that. But from a personal, like a coach's perspective, what was kind of that feeling internally? You've been doing it for a while,
Right.
and to break through the LC barrier, and just the number of times that you've gone to state and you've placed and you've done all those things.
Right.
That might kind of seem like that last hurdle to get through. What was that feeling like when that final horn sounds?
It was pretty surreal. I mean, I think, this is the first time that we'd ever been like going in. We were ranked one. We were supposed, everyone's saying you're going to win it. You're going to win. We've never been in that position before, which that wasn't overly fun.
Right.
Just as far as like, you're supposed to win, like, okay, great. Everyone's like, you're going to win it. I'm like, okay, we got to win some games.
Yes.
So to get there, I think that initially it was just like, we did it. We made it, like, cause and I think the girls this year were really just locked in, like, okay, next game. And I think part of that was from last year. They just really wanted to get there.
Yep.
And so it was just, I think the first thing was just relief. Like we did it. And I don't know, going in, starting coaching, my John Wooden's success is knowing you have peace of mind, doing the best you can with what basically what you have. I mean, that's always been my definition of success. So
love it.
Whatever team we had, we just wanted to reach our ceiling. And if that was, 6-14 or 10-10 or whatever it was, then I was pretty happy. So, and obviously you want to be as good as you can. And so I don't know. It didn't really hit me until one of the interviewers said, this is the first, this is the first one for your school ever. What does that mean? I'm like, wow, I never really thought of that. Like, I just thought, this is what we're doing, and we're going to be the best we can at it. And so, I mean, it was an incredible experience. I mean, I don't know. Everything is a flash. And like, you're like, you're running around for, like, what are you doing? In my mind, I just keep thinking, like, that Jim Valvano did that when he won. He's running over, looking for somebody to hug or high five or something. And it's kind of that, like, what do you do now? What do you do now? And so, but it was just really fun with my staff and the players, knowing how much time and energy you put in, and then to accomplish something of that stature, especially being the first time in school history, was, a memory I'll never forget, and the kids will never forget.
Awesome. Fabulous. All right, just a couple more questions, and then I got to let you go. I've kept you on, and this has been great. I think the other big motivation, at least for myself, is, it's kind of wanting me to get started a little bit. It's kind of making that summer hoops thing get a little bit closer. And speaking of summer hoops, let's talk about a few things that'll kind of maybe help some coaches, maybe things that you found some success with that kind of help maybe get you motivated, or maybe to help you with your teams or whatever it may be. And so these might be a little bit out of left field, but I wanted to make sure we get these in before we run out of time. What's something that post-COVID that maybe you picked up when we could only do, little things or what have you, but something post-COVID that you're doing now that you didn't pre-COVID that you feel like has benefited your program? Excuse me.
Really trying to work on just behaviors.
That's a school thing.
School thing, but just as a, you know, as a program, you know, performance is really a bunch of behaviors that equal success. So we always get caught up in the end product, but really it's those little, it's all those, it's a sum of the behaviors that happen daily. And so to be aware of that, and then how are we teaching but holding kids accountable to the behaviors, you know. I think that's been a big thing that I've been trying to learn and implement, and it's hard because it's a different, we're so, as coaches, so success
and result, like you said,
orientated, you know. And so, like, just a simple example, I mean, there's a bunch of things here, but you know, you're doing a drill on defending the ball screen, and however you do it, switch it, hedge it, whatever. And then so we're watching that, it's going great. And then I would say something like to the offense, like, that was a terrible pass. Like, what? Or you didn't cut hard. And we're not even, I shouldn't even be focused. I shouldn't be saying anything about offense because it's not an offensive drill. Who cares what the offense does? The focus needs to stay just on how we're defending the ball screen. And the kids will get way more out of that than me just jumping around from point to point, that just whatever enters my mind. Stuff like that, I think. I've been trying to.
Are you I'm adding to this already. Are you a small-sided games? You mix in a lot of small-sided, you know, drill kind of things with practice. That's something I've really gotten engaged with here recently. Is that something that's part of your repertoire?
Yeah, we do small-sided games. We do nothing without some type of defense because there's no transfer.
Okay.
We never, like, when we put in a set, we put defense on from the very beginning.
So no 5-0.
Never.
Oh, love it. Okay.
I mean, we might go, okay, here's the out of bounds play. We're going to run it one time. Okay, now defense, get on.
Got it.
And then we're never doing that play again without defense, because
love it.
Doesn't transfer.
What summer hoops is on the horizon. What is your typical goal with your program for the summer? What do you try to accomplish in the time that you get with them?
I think I got this from Don. I don't know who I got this from. Stole, you know, as you coach so many times, I just steal stuff. But you know, I heard, I love it. November to March is team time. March, November is individual improvement time. So for me, summer is about getting players better, winning secondary. I need kids to grow their game. So if we can win, great. But that's not my number one priority. It's get kids reps. Lots of reps.
Is that your opening message when you get started? Do you say, hey, we're about getting individuals better? We're trying to we'd love to win, but our bottom line is we want to get each of you better as players during this time frame. Yeah.
And I think, you know, over the years, like, you know, it just always kind of drove me a little bit crazy. Like, you know, go to team camp, and like the team camp in the past, we'll go, okay, I'll just go, all right, who's starting? I don't care. Get out there. And some kids, like I've seen on other teams, some kids don't ever play. And I'm thinking in my mind, if like I'm on a summer team and my coach won't play me in the summer when it doesn't matter, why would he play me in the season when it does matter? Like, it makes no sense. And so I mean, I don't care if you're the number 10 or 8 or whoever, they're just new 5. I don't want the same 5 to start. Get out there, and then we'll go from there and grow kids. I gotta grow kids and their abilities.
Love it. All right. Well, one last question. I've got 9 minutes ticking at me, so that's plenty of time. But one last question. And once again, we really thank you for your time. This has been great stuff. Good way to start. Again, I've already picked up. Yeah, you bet. I've already picked up a few things I'm gonna throw into what we do. What are some go-to things that you like to access? Whether it's, you know, a book, something online, things that you maybe lean on for some new ideas that can maybe help some of our coaches out there.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. I follow a whole bunch of different people on Twitter. I think that's a great, different basketball coaches on Twitter. So Diagram, I mean, that's a great place, just a quick scroll. Like Basketball Immersion.
Great stuff.
or
Yes.
I'm on subscribe to them. I listen to all kinds of podcasts, not just basketball ones, but the mental side of stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of
100%.
mix in all that stuff, and then I guess I'm always looking for something that will give me a competitive advantage. So we can't always put the best in our league. You can't always put the best athlete. So what can I do that'll give us a competitive advantage that somebody else maybe doesn't do or can't do or won't do?
Yes.
So I'm always thinking in those things, and then just trying to take an area of our program that we want to see if we can improve it. And during COVID, it was our transition games. We spent a lot of time on transition game. This summer, we're going to work on our summer programs. We're going to do things a little bit different than we've done things in the past for summer stuff. So we're still working on that, but just finding an area. And I think just always, I obviously as a coach, we're not playing or doing what the kids are doing, but I feel like I can't ask them to go get better and me not get better. So
Right.
I have to grow in my knowledge of the game and how to teach it and to better communicate it. And I've always told everybody that as soon as I lose the love of not wanting to learn and grow, then I'll get out. But I still have that love, and it's fun.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Once again, I really appreciate your time. Congratulations on an amazing season. And I know you guys are in a good place. You've got some good returning players coming back, and can't wait to get and catch up with you during the summer, I'm sure, at some event down the road. But once again, thanks for hopping on, and wish you nothing but success moving forward.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.